Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Life Forward workshop on parenting for success. And we have some exciting information to provide you, very useful and timely. So I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Robbie Robinson. He's from the J-Team Intervention Specialist with our local Sheriff's Department. He provides information about local drug use, to include the dangers of fentanyl, and I'm sure we're all aware of that. He's a retired LA County probation gang officer, so he understands the issues that drive our youth to participate and do things that are harmful to their well-being. He received an award from the SCD Salvation Army for his efforts with the community and coordinating services for those who need assistance with drug abuse. And also accompanying him is Carrie Fleishman. He is a certified addiction specialist and interventionist and a high-risk teen counselor. He's become a nationally recognized expert working with adolescents. He is founder and is nationally, I think I just said that, he is founder of the
Action Drug Rehab.
Thanks, I just, my computer did a lot of things for me this morning. Apologies.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here. I'm very grateful to be here. A lot of you know what's really going on out here in these streets. Pretty much you hear about it, you see about it. We see the lawlessness, and we also see people having no respect for the law. Well, first of all, I just want to say this: if you have no response to what's going on, people just become like, okay, that's just normal. But what's happening in the street is not normal. People are dying because of this fentanyl crisis. Crime per se has gone up. A lot of it is drug related. You see the high-speed chases sometimes, and a lot of times people are under the influence of either methamphetamines, marijuana, and other drugs and other opiates that are really causing the problems. We see a lot of it with the youth because the youth is saying, what are you going to do to me? We see how the court system has been broken down. Years ago, I had a thing that if there's no recourse, if there's no consequences, people do whatever they want. When we grew up, a lot of us who are like not seniors but parents, you knew that years ago, if there were consequences, you did something, there were consequences. I'm not saying that a lot of kids need to go to jail forever, but when I was a probation officer, we had the juvenile alternative work program. And that's where, you didn't go to jail, but you were out there on the streets cleaning up. If you choose not to do that, then you spend time in juvenile hall. But for a lot of the drug offenses years ago, there were 4 stages of camp. 3 months, you had 6, 9, and if you were a constant person that was constantly in trouble, we went to the California Youth Authority. A lot of that's all going on there. So this is why you see the recidivism with a lot of these kids. They don't respect the parents. They don't respect authority. So, this is where we are now. So what are we going to have to do? Yes, ma'am.
In your opinion, why is that gone? Why are we not doing it?
Well, because people are afraid to be parents. People are afraid nowadays in certain aspects. It all starts at home. All of this starts at home. And, you can't a lot of people can't send your kids to school and expect the school to raise your kids. It has to start at home. The teacher's job is to teach them, reading, writing, blah, blah, blah. But really the way that you act and the way that you conduct yourself, that happens at home. But we know, not all, there are some parents who are not working or giving time with their kids. So the kids act up. Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I understand that part. Once they do act up and they're committing crimes, how come they're not going to jail? How come they're not having those consequences?
Well, because, as I said earlier, the system has broken down. The system has broken down. There are people in the system who want to do something, but I'm not going to get into politics. If we get into politics, I'll be on the cross and nobody's going to support me. But you know where I'm going with this.
But I'm just going to say one thing to do that is an adolescent that gets arrested for anything right now, any misdemeanor whatsoever, never hits it to the court's period.
Right.
Never. So if they get arrested on the streets for carrying whatever it is, it's a misdemeanor, there's no court. It's just thrown out.
Yes,
If they're arrested for drunk driving and they're under the age of 18, the only consequences is you get beat, not the system.
right.
So people change only when they have to change. And if there is no consequences, they don't change. So the system, like Robbie said, it's broken and there is no reason for people to change right now. And that's a sad situation. Hopefully it's going to be fixed pretty soon.
Well, I'm gonna just be real clear with you. A lot of us have lost our relationship with God. People don't respect God anymore. People don't want to hear that. You know, people don't want to talk about God. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about really having respect for God. Are you praying with your kids? Are you going to church? Are you teaching them, the 10 Commandments? So God to some people says, oh yeah, I believe in God. No, it's more than just that. I don't want to get on the soapbox, but there's no respect for God. There's no respect for the American flag, and there's no respect for our country. And so the kids see that. So if they see the adults acting out, I can do it too. What are you going to do to me? So I have a few things here. I'm not going to read everything. I have a few things here about the two things I'm going to talk about real briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over to my dear partner. I'm going to talk about recognizing denial, enabling, and why we enable. Okay. And I'm not talking about the river in Egypt. I'm talking about denial. People are like, well, no, my kid isn't using drugs, or he just smokes a little marijuana, or he doesn't need to go to a drug program. We can talk about it at home. There's more to it than that. You do need help. All of us need help. Every one of us in here, probably as we were growing up, had a mentor. Mentorship is lost now, unless it's forced. You get in trouble, then maybe you need a mentor, somebody to help you get out. And I tell a lot of the kids years ago, this isn't a get out of jail card. This is that you need to go through the steps in order to change yourself. This is denial. The other one that I'm going to talk about is, I'll just read this real quick. Overcoming denial begins with becoming informed about drug culture, activity, and the use in your community. Now in my community has rapidly changed. In reality, drugs are a potentially serious threat because they are used to fit in or to produce a drug high. All right, that's one thing. Now let's talk about the next thing, then I'll turn it over. Let's talk about enabling. That's a real big thing in the household. You don't want to see your kid out there, I'm gonna give him another chance. I'm dealing with a case right now, a 29-year-old man. His mother's telling me about him using drugs, this and that. He's been arrested several times. The sheriffs are doing a fabulous job detaining him. But to send him to treatment, I've recommended treatment. If he's detained, he's going to get treatment eventually. So he doesn't want to, he can do it himself. So I told the mother, don't allow him to move in with the grandmother. What do you think happened? Moved in with the grandmother. She's enabling him. She's giving him money. Now what's happening? He's stealing from the grandmother and bringing other people in. So now the grandmother's held hostage in her own home. And I said to the mother, tell the grandmother to call me. Do you think she called me? No. She's still enabling him. And she's wondering why she's having problems. So when you start enabling kids, you start having all of these other problems. You start getting sick, you become irritable, your relationship probably within your family decreases. You're not the one that's using drugs, but the kid or the person's using it, it's taking its toll on you. You don't reach out to God, and when God does speak to you through the church or through prayer, you refuse to listen. Sometimes, this is what I told somebody. I teach boxing. I said this, and I'm going to turn it over. Sometimes the best lessons are taught by people you have a disagreement with or you dislike. Sometimes the best lessons that are taught to you are from people you disagree with or you dislike. Make sense to you? So we have to start listening. And it says, why do we enable? Listen to this, I'll read this. And I have these handouts, so you don't have to worry. I'll give it to Ms. Walker and you can get it and whatever, but I'm just gonna read this. We become enabled because we feel we have no other choices. Many times we have learned this behavior from our family of origin. Now, I'm here to tell you that my mother gave me up. I was put in a foster home. I really pushed because I had a drive in me. My mother, when I finally met her, I found that she had an enormous drive in her, but she was young, 18, 19 years old. But here's the other things. We may be ignorant or in denial about the seriousness of our child's behavior. Many times we are able to rationalize, justify, and make excuses for our decisions. They're using drugs. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to help him. No, I don't want him on the street. Sometimes people have to hit the lowest ebb in order to get the understanding. Here's the last thing. We get so locked into the way things have always been done that it's hard to even think about a different way of setting limits and consequences with our children. This is what I tell people. What are you willing to do to move to the next level? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up? All of us have to change. All of us have to change. I'm going to be, thank God, I get it now. Teachers were talking to me and all these other things. I get it. I see it now. I'm an old man now. Kids call me old man Rob now, so I get it. I'm very glad I get it. But what are you willing to do to change, to move to the next level? What are you willing to do? Are you willing to stop cursing in front of your kids? Are you willing to stop drinking in front of your kids? Are you willing to stop having arguments in front of your kids? Are you willing to, if you have a husband that is supportive, are you willing to talk with him in front of your kids where they see you have a good conversation? Are you willing to stop using profanity? In karate, and I still teach, this was a model that I lived by. We were taught this every day. There's no need to be weak mentally or physically. We'll have self-respect, confidence, and understanding. We are brothers and sisters together, strong, mighty, without fear. Here's the best model that I had, and I still do it. If my coach walked in here now, I would do it. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't curse, I don't gamble, and I don't carouse. That was the model that he taught me. He's in his 90s now. If he walked in here right now, there's a modicum of respect. I would do this right now. I'd stand at attention. But that's not taught anymore. We don't teach our kids that anymore. So what happens is these kids they gravitate to what? The streets. The streets are like Wild Kingdom out here. It's very unforgiving. Street justice is worse than going to rehab because you can lose your life. People are a different mindset. People in the street who sell drugs are predators. People who use drugs are under the, what they say, influence. Let's talk real quickly. Let's talk in the Bible. We know of people that had major anger issues in the Bible. Who was it? Saul had a major anger issue. He became jealous of David. Why? Saul started off good. He became jealous. And what happened? God took the kingdom away. What happened to him? He didn't use drugs, but because of anger management, what happened to him? He took his own life. Let's talk about Judas. We know the story about Judas. He was another one that had anger issues. You can see it in the Bible. Let's talk about some of the prophets in the Bible. Several of them were like, they had problems. I just want to die. I don't want to go do. Jonah didn't want to take responsibility. But finally, he got his what? Got his mind right. So if we look at in the Bible, we can see that people had issues. We talk about their great feat, but here's the great thing. They had a mentor. They had a mentor. You know the story of Samuel. Anybody here know the story of Samuel? What happened with Samuel was, he was a young boy. God called him 3 times, and Eli said, he went to Eli. And then finally, when he knew it was God, he told him, Eli said, if you say, tell him, God, I am your servant. So he came back and told Samuel what was happening because his sons were doing what? Acting out, just like kids out here in the street. Same thing, no difference. And then what happened? If you don't change, but remember with Saul, he never went back and asked forgiveness from God. He never said to God, would you forgive me for my sin? We know what David did, right? He went back to God and God still restored him. He paid the consequence. You can get arrested. You can say, I'm free from drugs and all that. But what are the consequences? Personal consequences, family consequences. So as I close, I'll stay around a little bit and I'll talk with you later. as I close, I want us to become aware of what's really going on in the street. What's going on? We just heard about Elvis Presley's daughter passing. But it was over the years, what was she doing? Using what? Drugs over the years, and it took its toll on her. Took its toll. So I want you to think about some of these things that I have. I had one thing here, I'm not gonna go over it. I had the thing called 12 rules for raising delinquent kids. I think you have that in your handout. And I want you, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's there. If not, I'll leave it. And I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to read it. It's not in your packet. Okay, well, okay. Okay, I'll make it up.
All of the attendees.
Here's the thing. It says in some of them, when I was a gang officer and I used to talk, I used to do this. Yeah, I had another handout. Don't get to know your child. They don't get to know your child. They will usually hang with those who have a negative influence. But here's the good one. Don't take them to church. The gang members or drug dealers will take them for the funeral. All right. So I'm going to let my partner here talk. And he's really very versed in all the things that you want. Some of the other questions. I'll be here. If you have questions and you want to contact me, I'll be here. Yeah. Thank you.
So I was thinking what I wanted to say, I have no clue, so I'll just play, how's that? So I was called about 6 months ago, this is insane, by a newspaper magazine from another country. And they wanted to interview me on guess what? The drug crisis in America. Isn't that crazy? Because in America, we use more prescription drugs than any other country, period, together. So if the answer to that is really pretty simple. Does anybody know why we use more drugs in America? More kids are using drugs at a younger age today than ever before. The answer is pretty simple. Does anyone know what it is?
Availability. I'll just say.
Availability, right? What?
Our family, the deterioration of like our family attachments and feeling included.
So if your child is attached to their friends, not you, what happens?
They better be good kids.
If they're attached, no, if they're attached to their friends and not you, what becomes more important?
Influence of their.
So I do a lot of speaking, right? And I used to, God, it's really funny because I ran tough love groups in this room 36 years ago. 36 years ago, I was running kids groups in this room. So just being here today is pretty exciting. But what do you think of 14 or 12? Almost every 14-year-old kid today has a phone, right? First of all, what's on this phone?
Everything.
What?
Everything.
There is nothing that's not on it. If you reach on this phone and you go porno, how many sites are there on it?
Yeah.
You can't count.
About half a million. So these kids, when I used to get calls from parents, guess what I found under my kid's mattress? I was a Playboy magazine. And they go, yeah, now it's this. Or now when somebody calls me and says, guess what I found under my kid's bed? You know what I said? Urine.
Oh.
So that they could beat the test. A 14-year-old girl goes to sleep at night. Right? What is the last thing that 14-year-old girl does?
Somebody talking.
I don't know that it's a text. I think it's more of a face-to-face on Snapchat or whatever it is. So they say goodnight to their friend. True.
Yeah.
Then they wake up in the morning. What's the first thing they do before they even use the restroom or on the way to the restroom? They're saying good morning to their friends and checking in and seeing what everybody's doing. So they go to sleep with their friends, right? They wake up with their friends. Then they walk out of the room and they say to mom, hi mom, hi dad, if they're at home, and they go to school with who? With their friends. So they go to sleep with them. They wake up with them. They go to school with them. Then they come home, and in most homes, if mom and dad are even living together, they're at work. So who's waiting for little Johnny? Who? Exactly. When somebody says nobody, everybody's waiting. All their friends are either in person or in person. So they go to sleep with them, they wake up with them, they go to school with them, they're on Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram with them. They come home to them, mom and dad comes home and they say, how was your day? It was good. How was school? It was school. Do you have any homework? I done it. Are you hungry? I ate. Isn't that what happens? Then they go back to their room, and what are they doing? Back on their things. So these kids are connected to their friends. They cannot be, so it's crazy, because I would do groups and assemblies for the last 40 years. And almost every time I did it, up until a certain time ago, I say to the kids, what's the most important thing in your world? And they would say family and God. Every time I do an assembly today, guess what they say?
Friends.
Friends, period. Why are they making bad decisions? Because they want to please who? Their friends, not their parents. Huh? Oh,
This was just the other side of that.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. So like this part.
Yeah,
What you thought.
better.
Thank you.
So the sad thing is. No, that's okay. So the sad thing is, they're making bad choices now because what? Because they want to please
Yeah.
their friends more than their parents. The old corny stuff that people used to say, kids, the families that eat together, families that pray together, families that play together, those kids do good because when they're ready to do something crazy, that little thing in their brain says, oh my God, how am I going to deal with my mom and my dad? That doesn't come anymore. It's not there. They're more worried about their peers. So now how does somebody become addicted to drugs? Somebody knows. What do y'all think? How do they become addicted to drugs?
They're their friends.
By experimenting, right? If they don't experiment, they're not gonna get addicted. The problem with today is there can't be any experimenting with drugs anymore. And there is no such thing as recreational drug usage anymore. Does anybody know? Why? Tell me, please, one drug that's not physically addictive today.
No.
That's physically addictive.
That's
Tell me one that's not physically addictive. Let's see, Valium, one of the worst withdrawals you can go through. Any benzos, Xanax, Valium, Ativan, the most written prescription in the country. Okay, crystal meth, it's not really physical, but it's so emotionally addictive that it's insane. And when somebody comes off, I just put 2 people in rehab this week that was coming off meth. They're both in psych hospitals. They put heroin in the ice. So I have to put them in a psych hospital first for a few days until they have enough medication so they can finally sleep. And hopefully their psychosis is done. Sadly, I'm just going to say this out, that I'm pressing the news to do some stories with me on this. I put more people in psychiatric facilities for THC than I have meth in the last year. And I'll tell you why. They legalized what? Wait, say that again. They legalized what? Marijuana, not THC. THC is the drug that's in the marijuana, right? That's what gets you high. But when now 20 years ago, somebody was smoking joint and it would be 0.3 milligrams THC. Now it's up to 25 to 30% THC. And if they have edibles, guess how many milligrams? 100%. It says it on the bottom, 100% THC. So it's more of a hallucinogenic than anything else. I have kids and adults that are psychotic, that are paranoid, that have huge anxiety attacks, that are ending up in the hospital with chronic nausea, chronic throwing up and coughing. This drug is no joke. And I can't get anyone to jump on it. I see this every day. It's so freaking scary.
My first time, to piggyback on what he's saying, I was an old street officer, probation officer. I used to wear my hat back and my hat on. And my gun.
Wait. Hold on. Wait, do you ever have any? Yeah, I want you to show. We're gonna have some.
When I was a gang officer, this was me. Man, how you doing? And then I was running across people who were doing this. What are you talking about?
There you go.
But what I'm saying to you, when I first came and started working with the sheriffs, doing mostly drugs, my first experience was what he said was a guy who was under the influence right in front of me. Right in front of a big guy, he had to be about 250, yoked up, and he stood against the wall like this, and he was doing it. Okay, I got him. So my street thing started kicking in. His father was with him. He says, you know, I'm good, man, but, you know, when I'm using, he said, I was just smoking fentanyl. Today I smoked it. He said, it felt like I had the flu. He said, I felt like I had the flu. He was standing there. I said, well, what's going on? What do they call you? He said, they call me Grizzly because I'm always, people tell me I'm always growling. So his father took him, was going home. He had a major attack. They had to take him. I didn't know Kerry then, but they took him down to Newport and he restrained, 6 guys had to restrain him because he was under the influence of fentanyl. It's serious. And when I deal with kids, like he was saying, you don't know why to smoke marijuana, but you don't know what people are putting in it. You can hit it once and die.
Don't have to put anything in it if they're eating it or vaping it or there's any oils because it's so potent.
Yes.
You know that, 2 things I'm gonna tell you about the pop, just real quick, the THC, I'm sorry. I know 2 people that have to take dogs to veterinarians because they almost died from eating THC.
Yes.
In the last month, I know 2 children that found gummy bears and ended up taking it and ended up in a hospital. Because their brothers, one and their mother, the other one, left them out and they smell like candy, they look like candy, why not eat it? And if you've been watching the news lately, you see people, all these supposedly overdoses where they didn't need fentanyl, they didn't need, it's THC.
That's it.
It's THC. So it's really pretty scary. So that rite of passage of marijuana, this is not marijuana. Get that straight. It's THC. And it's 100%. I'm gonna ask you guys a question now. What's the gateway drug?
No,
What? What?
I would say alcohol.
So alcohol, marijuana, what else? How about anything? So it used to be cigarettes, right? Almost every addict would start with that. Now, let me ask you guys a question. When you were young, we all have what I call contrast. Remember those? When I grow up, I want to be a boxer. Or I want to be a TV star, or whatever it is. No one ever said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a drug addict and go to jail. It's never said. So we had contracts like that. Then we had another set of contracts. I'm going to ask you guys, you remember what you said you would never do when you were a kid? What's that?
You sign a contract to say no to drugs.
So you do that now in kindergarten, right? So check this out. Everybody knows, for instance, that cigarettes are bad. Everyone knows, I don't care if you say you know or not, even kids know that vaping is not good, right? Anytime you inhale something, you put it in your lungs, it can't be good. So, and it's what does it say in the pack of cigarettes? Here's what it says on most right now. It says, warning, the Surgeon General, who's that? Head doctor in the world, has determined, that's a fact, that smoking causes, doesn't say might, lung cancer, emphysema, and a few other things. So my mother, she died about 10 years ago. And I'll never forget, they missed the cancer. We were sitting in the doctor's office and she looked at her, she had stage 4 when she was dying. And she looked at the doctor and she said, how did this happen? And he goes, Esther. Mom. I think that's my mother-in-law. Right there, but actually, he looked at her and looked at me, and he goes, Esther, it says it on the box. Isn't that crazy? So kids learn how that's most of the time their first contact with break is tobacco or nicotine. They learn it from 2 places. One is a learned behavior from where? Home. Do what I say, not what I do is a bunch of crap. So I'm going to tell you something real quick, and then we'll finish where I'm going. Is used to be when kids were growing up, they were heroes. There were sports figures and that kind of stuff, right? Right. Mine was Sugar Ray Leonard. I love him, and because I boxed. So but now, every time you watch TV and you see those heroes, what's happening? They're getting arrested for domestic violence, right? Yeah. They're going to rehab. Yeah. Or crazy stuff. So there is no real heroes anymore. So my challenge to every parent here and every parent watching is be the freaking hero you want your kid to grow up and be. Be the person you want your kid to grow up and be, not the person you don't want your kid to be. If you're drinking too much, stop. If you're smoking cigarettes in front of your kids, stop. If you're cussing and screaming at someone because it cuts you off, stop. That's how kids learn. So here's little Johnny. He goes to school. He looks over, ooh, she's got a look at her beauty eyes. She looks like gangster rap. And she look cool. But she looks at these kids over there and they look good. They're glamorous and excited. They're smoking vapes. They're hanging out. They're laughing with girls there. So he walks over there and he starts hanging out a little bit. And eventually somebody says, hey, want a hit? It's a vape. And he goes, no, I made a commitment when I was there to himself.
Yeah.
I don't want that cancer. My grandfather did. So he says, no, but he's there every day. So what's going on? He's getting what you call desensitized. So one day he says, what the heck? And he takes a hit. What did he just do? He broke a what? He did two things. One is he broke a contract that he made when he was probably in kindergarten, but he also just became part of that. And how does he clean that up? It's only nicotine. I'll never what? Smoke weed. And he means it. But he's still hanging out with all these people. Somebody comes in, they got some cookies and there's some THC in it. Once, oh no, I'll never use drugs. It's not a drug, it's THC, it's marijuana laced. It's legal. He said, no. But he's there every day. One day he says, what the heck? And he does, he smokes a joint or whatever it is he does. What did he just do? Contracts are getting what?
Less and less.
Kind of like, yeah, weak. But he did something different. More than breaking a contract, he just smoked something that made him feel what? Good. Different than anything he's ever felt before. And now he's really part of this group. So what does he say to himself? It's only pot, I'll never what? Use other drugs. And he means it. And he goes to a party one day. And somebody's got something that said crystal meth. Hopefully no fentanyl. Because if there's fentanyl in it and he tries it, he's dead. The first time. So he says, they say, you want some? And he goes, I'll never use hard drugs. And he smokes a little bit more pot. And then the tequila comes through the room and he drinks a little more tequila. And he's getting a little drunk. Now what happens to him when people start drinking, what do they lose? Their what?
Indecision.
Exactly. So the meth comes by and he looks nice and low. What the heck? He takes his first hit. What did he just do? Broke another contract? Contracts don't mean anything anymore. But he just put something in his body that made him feel different and better than anything he's ever felt before in his life, I promise you. How many times does it take to get addicted to meth? Once. Because, anybody know why?
The dopamine rush.
Because it's a shortcut to the pleasure zone of your brain. As soon as you hit it, bang, you feel, oh, this is great. It's better than going to school, arguing with mom, doing homework, playing ball, better than anything you ever felt before in your life. That's why people die, because they always want that feeling. So they chase it over and over and over again. And you can, I mean, it's just that easy to get emotionally addicted to that drug. Problem today is you can't play with drugs. The message that everybody's telling you, and I'm speaking literally all over the country right now, I'm doing a lot of speaking and stuff, but the problem everybody's saying is fentanyl kills. We all know fentanyl kills. The message needs to be different. Does anyone know what the message needs to be?
No drugs, period.
Exactly. Why?
Because fentanyl can be in anything.
Give her a hand. Not heavy, it is. We're testing kids, Robbie, that are 14 years old and it's showing up fentanyl and they're smoking weed. So they're putting this crap in everything.
Dealing with an 11-year-old kid, it's already a gangster. I was a gang officer for 35 years. I'm writing about it, my experience in working in South Central, all that was. This kid is 11 years old and he's already committed to the gangster lifestyle, already committed. Try to help him in school, try to get him in boxing. His mom is overwhelmed. She has 2 other kids. The school has been helping his doctor. And I called in another counselor to talk to him, young Hispanic kid, really nice little kid, straight gangster. If you saw him walking here, you'd think he's a gangster. He's already smoking. They're telling me he's tagging up. You probably read this on the news down in Jake's Lake. Well, I know he was involved in it. He's 11 years old. I'm talking to him. Look, son, he's doing this. Look at Heisman. Nothing matters. Does he need to go to jail? Years ago, he would have went to juvenile hall. They would have had him in the draws program. But as Gary was talking, I couldn't think of it, but look at this. Read my writing. It says, no accountability, no responsibility equals no consequences. Make sense, ladies and gentlemen?
And most parents are what? Not connected to their kids. So that's why that's the answer to why we're having a drug problem in this country is pretty simple. That's why. Can you do me a favor? Will you read that to people and look at the picture and tell them what you see?
Hi, Carrie. I'm the mother of Skylar Jones. I'm heartbroken to tell you that Skylar passed away October 25 to a drug overdose. Another vehicle sold lost to fentanyl.
Now, sadly, read that one. Same mother.
My daughter Brittany passed away December 10th. I can't believe this is happening. I'm devastated.
I'm dealing with this crap every day. These are, look. The sad thing is, before the pandemic, we had what you call an epidemic. Remember that? Every time you turn on the news, what you see, opiates. They're getting people addicted to opiates. Doctors started panicking and stopped writing them. Then the pandemic came. Now we had the biggest demand of opiates we've ever had in history. And then pandemic came, doctors stopped writing prescriptions because we're making people addicts. So now what happens? People that were drinking drank more. People that were using use more. People that had anxiety had more anxiety. Domestic violence got higher, suicide, everything got crazy. But there's no drugs for these people who want it. So China said, opportunity. They started on the dark web sending drugs, fentanyl to people, and you could buy a pressing kit on Google, and they were pressing pills. These are not pharmacists. They're not chemists. These are some jerks sitting wherever making pills. And I know some of them, trust me, they've been in my rehabs in the last year. So what happened is they started getting caught. The DEA and the government did a really good job of stopping them coming to this country. So I went to Mexico. And you see it's coming in by they're catching people with millions of dollars in pills. That's just this percentage of what's coming. So there's no pills written. There's a lot of pills on the street. The DEA will tell you 100% of the pills on the street are fake. I used to say 90%. No, it's 100%. So if you're baking chocolate chip cookies and you put too much chocolate chips in it, what happens? Tastes really yummy. But you got these geniuses putting fentanyl in pills. What if they put too much in the batch? Not yummy. It's deadly. 6 out of 10 pills on the streets today have the ability to kill you. That's a fact. That for the first time ever, life expectancy in this country went down because of accidental overdoses. Isn't that insane? Accidental overdoses. I would call them murders because people were out there buying what they think are Percocet or Oxy, and it's not as fentanyl. So if you go to the liquor pharmacy and you buy Tylenol and it's poison in it, that's murder. There's no difference. So these kids, they were saying that the #1 killer from 18 to 45 is actually now overdose of fentanyl. Wow. The #1 killer from 14 to 45 is actually not overdose, and they're now agreeing. And most of these kids, it's pathetic, and some of my good friends too. But what do you think these kids are hiding in their bedroom? The safest place in the world. Their parents are walking in the bedroom, finding them dead. So there cannot be any experimenting with drugs today. There can't be any recreational drug uses because there's no real drugs. Almost every overdose, if you pay attention to the news, 2 people died from using ecstasy laced with fentanyl. 4 people, 2 comedians, remember them? They died using cocaine laced with what? Fentanyl. So everything that's out there right now is laced with fentanyl. It doesn't make sense
Why do you think that's happening? Why is everything being laced with that?
because it's cheap and it gets you high and people come back for more. And I hear from these kids all the time, my dealer wouldn't do that. That's not true. You deal with I need to know. You can't get to, where did dealers get drugs? Where did dealers get the pills to sell them? They went doctor shopping. They had people going to doctors. And now doctors aren't writing. So where do they get them?
There, years ago, when I was a gang officer, you went after a drug dealer, kind of knew who he was. Everybody can hide behind social media now. Girls are big drug dealers. Let's get real. Women are smarter than men. Let's get real.
Why would you do that?
Women are smarter than men. Women are smarter than men. All my sisters are smarter than me. Wise. Wisdom doesn't mean I know everything, but I know what's going on. You don't always have to have an answer, but you have to understand the process. My wife is brilliant. My wife is smarter than me. I'm very wise. I listen to the process. I was talking to some, a person that is under the influence of cocaine, meth, fentanyl, all act different. They're the same, but they have different characteristics. A person who was on cocaine, used to hear rock cocaine, you've heard that term. A person on rock, I used to hear kids and the people in the street, you got my vampires out here. So that's a person that does what? Run all night looking for what? Rock cocaine. I started listening to the terminologies. A person that's tweaking, I heard somebody say, that guy's sketching. That's when I first, he's sketching. I knew they were using that. I knew they were using it. When I hear somebody say fentanyl, you know, I can see them, they're like this. But what do they want? And Carrie will talk. I can get that Narcan, I'm good. One time you take it, you won't pick up. My brother died from using meth, and he used to use what they methamphetamines, but he used to be in crack. They used to call it love boat. He was in the hospital. I was there when he died. I heard him take his last breath. I was in there in the hospice with him. And before he really lost consciousness, his words to me were, I should have listened. Tubes in his nose, I should have listened. It all started me from marijuana. And I just progressed all the way up. He was in his 60s. I'm older than he was 60.
Contracts.
So man, if I had it to do again, man, I really would have listened. I saw him dying. Saw him. And I tell the kids this, but you know, and I know these kids don't think nothing's going to happen to them. You might look good on the inside, but as my mother says, you age on the outside, but you age on the inside. So when you put these impurities in your body, you start breaking down. Last thing, you saw the picture of Elvis Presley's daughter. One of the pictures, she was like this. You can tell she had a hard life, but it's look at the life. Look at her dad, great musician, everything. What did he pass? Look at her, Tacoma. What did she pass on? Drugs. The heroes now are the anti-heroes. There are no real quote here, like he said, no real hero. The heroes are Snoop Dogg, all these other gangsters.
That praise pop.
And he does this. Does he look healthy to you? No. You know, great musician. You know, they said, you know, a lot of times, you know, God said this gifts come without repentance. You know that. You can have a great gift, but if you're not using it right, sooner or later, you want God's perfect will as opposed to his permissive will. His perfect will is for you to live right. His permissive will is you're on your own. You know, and I know if you study about God stopped talking to people for 400 years because they did what? They stopped listening. And the last thing, this is my opinion. I think that when we had the COVID virus, I think God says, I'm going to just let it go and see what happens. Slowly but surely, when people in the church started praying, people started getting what? Healing. My sister, my niece, great story. My niece had a major stroke. She wasn't a drug user. She had a stroke in her 40s. She was talking to me this week. And I broke down crying when she was talking. She says, I had a stroke. But you know what kept me? I kept believing in God. I was going to church. Oh God. She jumped up out of her chair. I could hear her. She was in DC. She ran around the room praising God. She said, what helped me was I had a belief in God. I didn't know when it was coming, but I was taught that as a kid, and I used it. And I just want to tell all my nieces and stuff who use drugs to stop. She had a major, I said, you had a, she said, no, Robbie, I had a major stroke. I started fasting, I started praying, and I went back to the hospital. And the doctor said she had an embolism, you know, she had it. Doctor said, like nothing ever happened. All because she was taught the what? Right way. Now, I'm not saying it's always going to happen, because God will take you no matter what, and he will heal who he wants. But that was a major thing. Her work, I'm going to talk to all my nieces and them who are smoking, says stop. That's how it is. That's a true story. I was in tears. She was talking to me. I was in his office and I was overwhelmed listening to her. And when you try to tell these kids that you're hurting yourself, they don't believe it because their parents don't enforce it sometimes, or the parents are so overwhelmed, they want to be their friend as opposed to being their mom.
Well, you know how much the average parent spends talking to their kids a day? The average parent in TV, what do you think the answer is? Anybody know?
10 minutes.
2 to 10 minutes. 2 to 10 minutes. How was your day? Or did you send it? Good. School, okay. Homework done. Hungry, I ate. So they're so connected to everything else right now that the decision process is. If we want to stop the drug usage in America, first of all, they're not going to buy their way out of this, and they're not going to arrest their way out of this now. They need to obviously arrest the dealers if they're tough on crime. They should. They have to. They also need, which means lots of needs to change. But you know what, you guys? The only real reading and stuff is hardwiring our children when they're in kindergarten about drugs, not just drugs, because they are not hardwired. So we got to start educating. Now we're writing up all kinds of stuff in the schools. We want to go into all the elementary schools right now. We want to teach kids when they're that young to make better decisions, because that's what's going to work. Sorry.
Question.
It's not a question. I do remember growing up where family dinner was important.
Sure.
Period. Whether you talked a little bit, but at least you communicated. And that was important. But nowadays I see the parents are so busy.
That's right.
With the phone, they come home.
Yep.
Leave me alone.
So I'll tell you a funny story. I went to a restaurant the other day. I went to the restaurant, listen to this. Went to a restaurant. It was a Lens. And I'm sitting at the restaurant and we're getting ready to order, and the father and son walks in. They walked in, they sat down, they both picked up their phone. Now watching this. They ordered, they stayed on their phone, the food came, they ate their food with the phones. At the end of, when they were done eating, the father said something to the kid. I almost jumped up and screamed. And they paid the bill and left. There was no conversation whatsoever. They go to Olive Gardens a couple months ago, and I'm sitting in there and watching what goes on. I always like to look at people. They see moms are posting pictures of the food to see how many likes they got. The kids were texting their friends from the dinner. But when we're together, we're not even together. So if we want to change this, hardwire your children. We can spend time with your kids. Put your phone down, parent. When you're sitting with your kid, have dinner with your kids, connect with your kids. If that's everything like that. When kids are connected to you, they make better choices.
I was teaching some of my kids. I have some kids. I teach green by. I take them out in the farm. We're going to get a thing. So I was teaching. It's about 8 or 9 of them. So I'm teaching one kid, two kids, and the rest of them standing on the side joking. Typical men, typical boy. They're young. You know, I said, yo, wait. When you see me talking out here, you pay attention to me. You understand that? They all stand there. I said, when you see me talking to one person, you pay attention. You get that? Talking like that. Didn't curse. You pay attention when I'm talking, because when you get in the ring, somebody's going to hit you. You're going to look over to me, and if you weren't looking at me now, you're going to feel the pain. You get that? Now take you behind out there and take another. That's talk to. Took a run. all four of them came up to me and they liked it. Coach, we're starting, Coach, all of them in unison. Wow. All of them in unison. So then they told me so. Not only I said, I'm not going to teach you how to box, son. I'm teaching you how to live your life. Pull your pants up. Come in here with your face clean. Now, some people don't like that. But if you have your kids, when you become a dad, you gonna let your kids do that? No. So when you hear me talking, you pay attention. Every time now they're like this. I have one of my kids he is 14 years old, at the heart of the line. And I don't want to take it from him. He's going through problems with his mom and stepfather. He loves his stepfather. Okay, so now what's happening is he's hanging with a few guys. What did I do? I didn't know. What did I do? I went to school to see him. I went to school, I talked to him. And I said, oh, yeah, coach. I gave him a hug. Coach loves me. So they don't pay me. But what am I doing? I'm trying to do whatever I can to keep them from going down that road. Because some of his friends are always smoking. They're doing these little thin donuts going down into LA. And so I told him, don't go down there, son. Don't go down there. You're a fighter. But what am I doing to him? Being a mentor to him. Whether he becomes world champion or not, I wish he would, but what am I doing? So his sisters see that, me talking to him. So when they see me, they're like 8, 9, once they all come up and hug me because they see what I'm trying to do. And that's what we have to do. Even when I go, like Carrie said, when I go and sit down with my wife, I leave my phone in the car. My wife gets on the phone because she is doing counseling with women, I get it. But I talk to her. I'm not on my phone like this. Whatever's on that phone, I get it when I get back to the car.
They call a lot of families in restaurants, isn't it? You have these kids sitting there. You know what they have right now? They got that little iPad so you could let your kids play a game while you're in.
Instead of talking to them.
So my challenge to every parent out there, this is my challenge, is eat, play, pray, whatever it is you gotta do with your children, do it. It's never too late to start. Put your freaking phone down when you're with them and be present, so they know you care about what's going on. It's hard to say, I love you, when you say, yeah, you're right, hold on just a second. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's like, come on. That means you're not, to them, they're not important. So you need to you need to let your kids know they're important to you. Also, I'm going to challenge everyone in the same room, same thing I said earlier. Be the freaking person you want your kid to grow up and be. Be that person. Don't be the person that says, do this, do that, but don't do what I do. Be the person you want your kids to grow up and be that hero.
And be a mom.
Yeah.
Be a mom to your kids. I have a niece who's upset at me, didn't speak to me for 2 years. I still love her. One day she kind of broke down and started talking to me, and I did this. Watch, I'm a typical guy. I did this. You know what? Let me tell you something. That's what I did. She didn't know what was going on because I kind of did that to get her attention. I did this. You know what? Let me tell you something. You're grown now. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm giving you advice so you can enhance your life. You listen to what I'm trying to tell you sometimes. I'm going to be 70 years old. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not always right.
I'm going to say you look great.
But I told her this, no matter what, hell, high water, snow, rain, whatever, I'm still your uncle and I'm still here for you. Even if you disagree and you decide you don't want to talk to me, I'm still here. She got the message. She kind of started talking to me. I said, you do what you want to do, but you're grown now. But right now, you respect your uncle because your uncle respects you. You got to talk to your kids sometimes like that. It's hard. Who wants to say that to your kids? You know what? I know you're using drugs. You can't come in my room wrong. This is my house. You're in my house. I'm going to go in there and see what's going on in your room. You dad going right. When you get older, do what you want. You got to start talking like that. Let them be upset at you. Let them be upset. I would rather you be upset at me than you be in jail and the system raises you. I would rather you be upset, because when you're upset, I can have a conversation with you. You don't have to agree with me, but you gotta get your mind, that's what I tell my kids. Get your mind, right, get your focus. Right. And you gotta do it sometimes. It's hard. Who wants to jump in your kid's face all the time? My mother used to do this. I knew what that meant. I knew what that meant. One time I was young and I had a little girlfriend and my mother was saying something to me and then my girlfriend says, oh, that's my mom. That's my mother. Even if she's wrong, that's still my mom. You've got to fight for your kids. You've got to fight for them.
They
You
have
to.
enough friends, guys. They need you not.
They need you as a mom and dad. And if you have a disagreement with your husband, don't talk in front of your kids about it.
Hey, Robbie, you know, that's why Danny's there, so the 24 hours and that.
Fight that. Any questions, real quick? I know you want to move on. I have other,
I just want to say one thing before we go. We have, just for anyone, if you all have, there were people listening and watching, if you have children that are using drugs or brothers, fathers, uncles, and aunts, we have Narcan in action. I would highly suggest that you come over to Action Headquarters and ask for someone to give you some. Everyone that has somebody using drugs should have Narcan in their house.
if you want to take my email, you can email me at the sheriff's station. My email is me Robbins, ROBINS, at LASD.org. I'll write it up here. There's probably phone. I'll write it up here. You'll go ME Robbins at LASD.org. And my number is 661-607-2038. I'll hang around here after if you want to talk to me. Share it for a minute.
And you can reach me, I'll give you my cell number directly. It's anybody want my cell, just call me anytime, day and night, 661-713-3006. If it's after midnight, I'll give you his phone number. No, call me anytime, day and night. And it's a pleasure. Thank you for.
Thank you, ladies.
Email this information to the attendees there. So anyway, I shared this with the speakers just before, but my family was with substance abusers, to include my ex. So my two sons, the older one was an alcoholic for 40 years. He has suffered 2 brain traumas and is now in a boarding care facility because he has to have constant care. The younger son, at the age of 13, began using drugs. I don't know what all was available back in the 70s, but anyway, those were what he used. So is it his mental maturity?
Well, usually when we start getting high at like 13, our emotional being is around that age. Yes.
Yeah, so he's kind of, I think you told me he's now about 15, even though he's 59 years old. So those are things you need to take care and, consider and think about.
Especially with the new.
When you see what the new drugs, which are just, we're just
You better take it serious.
available at the time. Neither was the help for drug abusers when my sons were growing up. So anyway, I want to thank you. Let's take a break for about 10 minutes and we'll get set up to continue for the rest of our presentations, which will be about bullying and parenting. We're ready now to move on to the second portion of our presentations. We're going to be talking about bullying and cyberbullying, and then just general parenting for success. So I'd like to introduce Alejandra Vidrio, outreach specialist at Child and Family Center. She provides substance use prevention education to youth, families, and community. She is responsible for facilitating prevention group education, outreach, presentations, workshop, and distribution of material that align with county goals and objectives. before working at the Child and Family Center. Her extensive background includes working in the drug addiction recovery field. The population varies from working closely with inmates to working with at-risk women's treatment center to private paid treatment. And then following that, the next speaker that will be speaking about parenting success is Stephanie. And Stephanie Garrison has 8 years of experience helping parents maneuver through the journey of parenthood. She is a certified victims of domestic violence advocate. She shares her knowledge and guidance as a group facilitator and case manager at Child and Family Center's domestic violence program. She also provides parenting workshops for the city of Santa Clarita and has worked with Family Focus, providing parenting support groups. She is certified in active parenting and also trained to lead parenting workshops by Children's Institute, LA. As a single parent with a special needs son, she shares a wealth of firsthand and personal experience. She has personal experience providing care to people with special needs from infancy to young adulthood. She loves being an educator and advocate and is honored to offer support to her community. So at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Alejandra.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here, it's fine. All right, awesome. So, okay, hi, I'm Allie. I go by Allie, this is Alejandra. I'm usually at school, so I'm usually with the kids. In all parts district. I'm usually with kids talking about bullying in elementary schools, and talking about substance abuse, consent, media literacy, usually with the teens. This is my first parenting class, so I hope I do well or workshop. But I am usually with your kids. Yes. So if they go anywhere in the Heart District, I might talk to them. All right, so today I was asked to bring a presentation about bullying and cyberbullying. So if everyone has worksheets, if you do not, the presentation is located in the basket. Also, there is a reference, another handout I'm going to reference about apps. And then if you're in Zoom, you have been emailed these handouts and the links. All right. The objectives, we're going to define what bullying is, and we're going to define what cyberbullying is. We are also going to talk about the effects of children being bullied and effects of if kids are the actual bullies. And then we're going to recognize if they need support and we'll provide resources. So I do want to ask what you guys know of already, of what bullying is. Does anybody know what bullying can consist of? When we hear the word, yeah,
Emotional or physical intimidation.
yes, absolutely. Any other? Yeah,
There's always a difference in power and it's repeated.
yes, that's the actual definition. Great. For both of you. And then what do we know about cyberbullying? What does that look like?
Social media.
Yeah, so social media, but what, like, it could be negative comments on social media, it can be text messages. It's anything mean or inappropriate that's done online. So, cool. A lot of people don't think bullying is happening, but it's very prevalent. Very prevalent. It's always in the news. Less of Santa Clarita. I could not find any of Santa Clarita, but there is definitely bullying going on. I do have notes. This is the first time I am presenting about bullying. So it is growing and it's becoming more prevalent, especially with the fact that technology keeps increasing, all these software such as apps, game consoles, all of that's also increasing. And just everyone, when I'm in the elementary schools and I'm asking fifth graders if they have phones, they all raise their hand. It's crazy. So it can be good and it can be bad. But, about 20% of students ages 12 to 18 are experiencing bullying nationwide right now. Yeah,
What's the percentage?
20%.
Okay.
And it's usually because, the children who are being bullied, they say, 56% have the ability to influence other students' perceptions. 50% is because there's social influence. And then 31% they have more money. So these are just some facts. So in order to talk about bullying, we got to define bullying, but I think we already did. But the Center of Disease Control in 2014 has defined bullying is a type of youth violence defined as unwanted aggressive behavior by another group or group of youths who are not siblings or current dating partners. Bullying involves observed or perceived power imbalance and is often repeated multiple times and highly likely to be repeated. So spot on. So it's definitely violence amongst the youth. And there are different forms. But before we get to the different forms, we're going to talk about where it does take place. So these are the numbers of where it is taking place. So we see the majority of it's in hallways and stairways of schools. It's 43% in hallways and stairways, 42% in the classroom, 26.8% in the cafeteria, 21.9% outside, but still on school grounds. Online or text is 15.3%, but I believe it's a lot higher. We'll get to that in just a sec. And then 12% in bathrooms and lockers or the locker room, or 2.1% someone else in the school building. Approximately 46% of students ages 12 to 18 who were bullied during the school notified an adult at school about bullying. That's 46%. So that's almost half. But again, the other percentage is the amount of times it's not being reported to an adult. So the different forms of bullying. We know obviously the physical, it's hitting, kicking, scratching. Next is verbal, it's name calling, putting somebody down. Teasing, name calling, making threats, intimidating, demeaning jokes based on someone's appearance or differences, spreading rumors, and gossiping. And this is definitely taking place. We do a workshop with the elementary kids. We ask them to write down an example of verbal bullying that they've heard, some toxic talk. And some of it's pretty gnarly. Like it gets pretty tear jerking sometimes. Some of it's coming from home, being told by different siblings, but it's definitely happening in the classrooms as young as what I've seen, 4th grade. It usually starts around preschool, so. Wow. I'm sorry. So, something less known is social. Social is like if somebody is being excluded, social manipulation, it's making someone feel excluded or humiliated in public, spreading rumors, telling someone they can or cannot be friends with, that's verbal, and that's social. Cyber, writing anything mean or inappropriate online, sending unwanted emails or text messages, threats, hate speech, ridiculing somebody, posting lies, rumors, gossips. There is a school, an elementary school that I went into, and they were 5th graders, and they had a specific TikTok account specifically to demean and spread rumors and gossip about other people. So I went home and I reported it, but I think it's still up. Like, and that's happening in here. It's happening in Santa Cruz. So it's definitely intense. So now that we're talking more about cyber, do we know the top 3 apps that kids are using today? TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. Yes. If you're not familiar of what your kids are using in the apps, you're not in tune with them, I believe. Yes.
I recently heard someone talk about a new one that just came out. The kids are all over, but I can't remember what it was.
There's so many. There's
I'm
so
thinking
many.
about it, not, no.
But we need to know.
That's something about some other new one.
There's like Be Real, there's Kick, there's. I'm a millennial, so, no, I don't know about it, but they're on Roblox, Discord, do we know about Omegle?
No.
It's where they download and they get to talk to anybody around the world, of all ages, and usually it's people showing private parts. So,
Oh, my God.
but the majority are on TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. There was recently a video of the TikTok CEO does not let his own children use TikTok, and they are ages 8 to 9 because that's not appropriate for them. They're not at that age. And if the CEO of TikTok is saying that, that's okay. I for one love millennial, but you know, definitely at a certain age. The United States also is one of the only countries that, so everywhere around the world, TikTok is regulated except the United States. So if you're 13, you can't even have a TikTok. Of course, how much you could do the math and put a different age, and that's usually what children do. But in China, you can only watch TikTok for only so much, and then it restricts you. There are certain parent control settings in every app that you can go and restrict time limits and restrict content. So becoming more aware of that is also really important. But yes, these are all the things, because this is what the children are spending most of their time on. We can see that TikTok has definitely made an increase due to the fact that, I downloaded it during the pandemic too. I was at home, and so it's definitely becoming increased. Most kids are using TikTok for information. Instead of Googling it and checking resources, they're like, hey, what happens or with this, or what is this symptom of? So there's a lot of misinformation that kids are using TikTok for. Snapchat can definitely be very dangerous. Before this, I worked in recovery, and a lot of 18-year-olds were coming into treatment thinking they were buying Percocet off Snapchat, and it was really fentanyl. So yes, there are ways to purchase things through Snapchat. The thing about Snapchat is delete after 24 hours. So there's no evidence, there's no paper trail. They're also using it as forms of communication. So sometimes when we take, devices out, like if you do take someone's phone away, your children's phone away, they can go online and message and video chat their friends anyway. So becoming aware of that. Yes, and also if they follow something, there's an algorithm. So if they like something, they will be shown that again. So you can definitely see what their interests are based on like the first 10 videos that pop up on their TikTok. These are signs of if your child is being bullied. Physical injury, so if they come home, they have bruises, they have scratches, they have disarrayed clothing, that's really good indicators. Next is emotional, so appears sad or depressed, unexpected mood swings, sudden outbursts of temper, loss of interest in school, or anything. If they have extracurricular activities they used to like going to and now they don't want to, they wanted to go to the skate park but now don't want to, like those are really good indicators that something there they're trying to avoid. So they they can miss class so that day, but they have like, they didn't do their homework or study, those are really good excuses for someone to see that something's wrong with the child. Odd requests. So if they're asking for money, so sometimes we give money for lunch and they're asking for more money in order to compensate for their lunch being taken away, and therefore still having lunch to give to the bully. Odd requests like, please don't let me go to school today, really just don't want to go today, or yes. Isolated, if they're starting to like retreat. Usually they feel isolated, they feel like they don't have the power to be able to do anything about it, and therefore they start wanting to stay home more. not hang out with their friends, and then fearful of notifications. You can definitely tell if there's something going on within like the social media world or game console. If they don't ever want to go in the game anymore. There's a lot of verbal abuse when children play game consoles. Like when I talk about toxic talk and start talking about cyberbullying, all the boys usually raise their hand and are like, we get it, we know. They're usually like a lot of older people saying really mean things to very small children. So maybe if they start not wanting to go onto their game consoles, maybe they get anxious every time their phone rings. Those are really good indicators. The effects of being bullied, again, we're still talking about if a child is being bullied rather than if they are the bully. So still continuing health problems, if there's lots of stress, that can become, they can start feeling eating disorders, traumatic behaviors. So they can start having really bad headaches or not being able to sleep. That can all be stress induced. Mental health issues, they usually start arising around the ages of 12 to 13. And that's usually when bullying starts. That's usually when they enter middle school. When they enter middle school, 31% are being bullied in middle school specifically. Academics, so if they're struggling academically, GPA is starting to decrease, there's starting to be less homework being turned in, test scores are fluctuating, and then also increase of unhealthy behaviors. They could be starting to use substances, self-harm, violent behaviors, again, hurt people. I was bullied in middle school, and therefore I chose to have a new friend group, and that new friend group was probably not the healthiest friend group. And therefore I participated in drug use very young, 10 years of meth use. And now I'm sober. I'm 4 years sober, but all of this started like because of bullying. Like I didn't realize that until now, but definitely a lot of that happened because of bullying. So lots of effects can happen. We're gonna watch a quick video of why maybe teens bully.
Why I bully you. Silly Douglas, Sienna Torres, Kaylin Youngblood, Lauren Pack, Markeisha Baber, Maya Mayer, Rochelle Schuckman, Brianna McGavin, Simone Abegaman, Zaria why I bully you. I bully you because you're fat. I bully you because you're ugly. You're ugly. Ugly. I bully you because you're stupid. You smell. You make me sick. I bully you because you're too tall. You're too short. Too light. Too dark. Too smart. Too dumb. I bully you because you're a nerd. You're a nerd. I bully you because you have no friends. You're a loser. You're a loser. You're gay. Gay. And everybody hates you. I bully you because no one ever stops me. I bully you because no one cares. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? I bully you because no. I bully you because it makes me feel powerful. Powerful! I bully you because I want to fit in. I have to fit in. I bully you because I don't want anyone to see my imperfection because I'm uncomfortable in my own skin. I bully you because I don't like myself. I don't like myself. I bully you because I have my own nightmare, my own worst enemy, numbing myself from the inside out, projecting it onto you. I bully you because I'm scared. I bully you because my mother screams at me. I bully you because my father hits me. I bully you because my brother beats me up, so I beat you up. I bully you because I think I might be gay and I don't want anyone to know. I bully you because I don't feel good about myself. I bully you because I think I'm ugly. I think I'm too fatty. I think I'm stupid. I bully you because I see myself in you. 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 I bully you because I am you.
All right. So what were some of the reasons why they said that they bullied?
Makes them feel powerful.
Powerful, definitely. What else? They don't love themselves. They don't love themselves.
They're not being treated well.
They're not being treated well at home. Yes.
Scared.
Scared.
No one stops me.
No one stops them. Of course. So then they'll repeat the behavior. There's a lot of like insecurities, a lot of projection, lots of reasons why possibly kids would want to bully somebody else. Yes. And we'll talk about, and then some of the effects of the kids who are bullies. Hold on. Also, so wait, first, the warning signs. So although we dove into maybe why kids bully, some of the warning signs, if a kid needs to be dominant or subdue others, exert their own power to get their own way, intimidates the kids in the neighborhood, intimidates their sibling, is hot-tempered, easily angered, impulsive, has a low frustration tolerance, has difficulty conforming to rules or tolerating adversities, defiant or aggressive behavior towards adults or authority. These are all really good warning signs. Additional risks that come to play: kids who bully can also engage in violent or other risky behaviors well into adulthood. Kids who bully are most likely to abuse drugs and alcohol in adolescents and adults, potentially have criminal convictions and a lot of traffic citations as adults, engage in early sexual activity, get into fights, vandalize property, and drop out of school. These are all additional risk factors if a child is a bully. So how can we help? So we'll end it in a positive light. So these are some tips for when you suspect your child is the one being bullied. You have to go with your gut. Don't be afraid to ask. You are their parents. You are the person responsible for them. Sometimes when I'm talking to the kids, because I also go to action with the gentlemen that just talked, every Wednesday, the kids that get in trouble, I talk to them. Every Wednesday, we talk about healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. They're usually there for vaping, so that's a lot. But usually we talk and they don't feel comfortable talking to parents. Like they just don't. And I'm not a parent, but like I think my own experience with how I was raised and how I would potentially raise like connects. It really we are able to have like serious conversations. They're afraid to talk to you guys. They're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of you not understanding, and therefore there's not a lot of back and forth communication. But we have to talk to them. We have to talk to our kids. So don't be afraid to ask questions like, hey, how's school going? It's recommended to have at least 2 sit-down family dinners a week in order to be able to connect with them, talk and process their day with you. If they are being bullied, document dates, times, and details. Very important. So, you do need to resolve into different measures with the school, with police. Talk safety planning. Sometimes we need to actually pretend we're like, okay, so if this happens, like what can we do? Okay, so maybe you'll take, maybe you'll go this way home instead of that way home. Maybe if you do get frustrated, like where can you go in school to feel safe? A lot of these schools in the Heart District have wellness centers now. I hope your students are aware of that. And these wellness centers have social workers now. These schools have social workers, which is so important. And guidance counselors. So there are people there on campus already there to help for emotional support. And then also involve school and administration if you need to, if you want to, if, can your kid move to classes? How can we get, you know, the most safety for your child? And be a support for your child. That means, you know, make sure they're practicing self-care, make sure they are practicing good mental hygiene, good mental health hygiene. And also, lastly, seek out resources. I will be providing some resources, but definitely like, there's a lot of resources. Santa Clarita does, I'm not from here, I'm from here now. But Santa Clarita does a really good job of providing resources for teens. And there's so many different websites like the National Domestic Violence Hotline. But they also have a specific one for teens to be able to reach out for any questions they have. It's called the Love is Respect. There's also a teen line. I give all these resources to the teens, so they know. Tips if you suspect your child is the bully. It's important to communicate. It's not always, you know, sometimes it's, you know, a teacher calls and says, hey, I heard, you know, there was an incident at school. Instead of like immediately like doing this, like investigate what's going on. Try to have them process it out. Like, what were you feeling? How can we do better? Get to the root of it, basically. Identify healthy coping skills. Okay, so when you do get frustrated, what can we do to help you calm down? I like fidget toys, like, I don't know, you know, I have little fidget things. We can practice grounding techniques, breathing techniques. Maybe you need to get more energy out. Do you want to join like any after school curricular activities? How can I help you better manage your emotional regulation? Provide appropriate consequences. For example, if somebody is being a cyberbully, like immediate phone access and internet access should be taken away immediately. And then of course they're able to remedy that and get maybe access to their phone or the internet, but it has to be within a certain time. What I mean by that is like if you punish them for 3 months, it loses the effect because then they adapt and do something else. But it's definitely, again, I'm sure Stephanie's going to cover more healthier tips for parents. Make sure your kid makes it right. It's important to apologize to whoever they have wronged because you're showing them how to take responsibility and accountability for their actions. Monitor the situation. We know that, you know, everything's been fixed, punishment has been mended, but it's a continual process to make sure you're monitoring them online. You make sure you're monitoring how they're behaving in school. Ask for maybe school updates, calling teachers, calling the guidance counselor. And then again, you can always seek help for them too, because again, hurt people. We saw in the video that some of the ladies were talking about how they're being, you know, bullied at school, and so they come home and they bully, you know, maybe their siblings, or definitely seek help to get to the roots and stay connected. Lastly, well, one of the last, cyberbullying. Again, if we don't know when our kids are on, it's hard to monitor that. Set reasonable limits in parental settings, as we were talking about earlier. There are certain features in app that will allow you to have the parental restrictions that children need. I also, if you look at the other handout I've given you, you can see I have provided a list of possible software you can put into child's phone. Hopefully it's consensually, because of course they need their privacy, but again, you're just trying to protect your children. There are some that like our Family 360 where we just have everybody's location on, so we know where you are. There's certain ones like you can track the history of what they're looking up in the internet, again, to whatever measure everyone gets to make, have that boundary. But if you are worried about a child, there are also more discreetly seen apps online. on your phones. So again, it's all in there, price, what features and whatever you need. So I would definitely look at that. But also if they do have social media, make sure they're private. Because I hope everyone else is private, unless you're somebody like in the city or someone or a celebrity, make sure your children's accounts are private. That means that they have to actually have somebody request in order to be friends, and then they have to accept, and we know how that works. But it's important to make sure you've gone through all the media and make sure they're private. Check it on a weekly, monthly basis, I would say. I wouldn't have gotten away with such a long drug use if my parents had did this. Really, truly. But they didn't know, you know, so my children will, well, they'll be a teach how your children should respond to cyberbullying. It's usually not okay to like engage. Usually screenshot it. Again, you're still using that for document purposes. So they can delete it, they can block, they can report based on an app. Usually apps are pretty good at like, if you do know them and you have that screenshot of being able to show that they were violating, you know, whatever, because most like Facebook, I don't think Twitter's becoming a little crazy, but TikTok, the actual app has like, wants to promote like positivity. So if there is any hateful language, they usually delete the account. So if you do screenshot it and put it into Facebook with like the person's name, they usually delete that account that sent it to them. Talk regularly about what's going on the internet with your kids. Like, hey, so your friends are posting this. How do you feel about it? It just opens up that communication with your kids. And again, learn about what apps are available to you. So that's the apps. Those are what are available to you, but also looking into what apps, there's certain apps even like on like Google Drive. It's like Google Family. It like shares everything. It's like an iCloud, but it shares everything. And then also watch out for bulk apps. So there's bulk apps, meaning that they look like something, but really there's something else. Like the most common one is the calculator. Really it's one hiding other social media or text. But with saying that one, we also have to like know what our kids are saying and talking about. So even becoming familiar with the emojis. Do we know what the emojis are? So I will have that out for you guys, but even the emojis, like sometimes they don't even say the words anymore. They say the emojis. So becoming familiar with that is really important. I would have not liked me in high school, so I apologize. But any questions before I go into resources? I know it's gonna. Okay, last one. Resources. Child and Family Center, we have a parenting group, so if anybody wants to up their game or need more support, we do have parenting flyers. We have mental health, domestic violence, and IOP. So there's therapy if children need therapy, if they're struggling with substance use, there is an IOP program. Stopbullying.gov is where I got all my resources from. So all of this is from that website. You also have it in your packets. And then the last one is VITA. VITA is a program that I also help with. It's the sheriff's program that you can sign up your kid to be able to get workshops and lessons if they have problems with like authority or anger issues, all of that. So I really like it. They take them on field trips, the Museum of Tolerance. They really teach them really good things. But anyway, I will be here. There's a bunch of flyers and stuff on that desk. You're more than welcome to it. But that is it for me. Sorry. It's okay. We're gonna figure something.
Okay, and thank you so much. You said Ally?
Yes.
And now I'd like to, we're preparing for Stephanie to present parenting for success. So she's going to take a different interactive approach here, and I'm going to turn it over to her. Oh, did you have your clip on mic?
Because I'm gonna read Amelia up here with me. And everyone went a little over, so we're gonna improvise on defining the content because we don't have a whole lot of time to work with. So it's gonna be definitely more interactive, just so we can kind of talk about some issues that you guys might be having. And also, I was writing, I'm gonna keep my phone here so I can keep track of the time. Put an alarm on. I think we have like 15 minutes. Although you're gonna do stuff down. Anyways, we're gonna skip the introductions and just jump on into this of time. So we're actually both from the Child and Family Center. We also both, me and Amelia, she has a very similar background to me. We both do workshops for the city together. So outside of Child and Family, she's my partner in crime, so to speak, when we do parenting workshops. So I'm happy that you shared that today, especially given our improv short time schedule. So one of the things I really wanted to talk about is just the importance of self-care. So today was really overwhelming. There's a lot of like bullying and grudge, and it's scary. So one of the things I want to focus on is how we can take all this information and actually generalize it to using it with our families. I've been writing notes as they've been going on, kind of changing things up to kind of meet that need. So one of the things I want to talk about is just really focusing on what you need for you, so you can be present, so you can use all the information that we've been talking about and have family talks, being and showing up for your kids. So what I'd like to do is I'm gonna write body, mind. These are things that we want to be focusing on. And there is some, you could write on the back of flyer, that's great if you want to do this. Spirit. Support. Healthy relationships. It's good that she's writing her writing's way neater than mine. And staying organized. So these are the main focuses of self-care, right? We need a little bit of all of these to, I know this is a little flimsy, to stay focused. So let's just get some ideas, conversational health. What could we do for our body for self-care? Exercise, yeah. Eating right, maybe.
And make sure that we have enough time to sleep or even a quick nap if that helps people
Exactly.
feel better again.
No, we're in a culture where we're like, go, 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 and exhaustion is praised when it really shouldn't be. And so, right? And so taking a nap, allowing yourself to do these things, right? It's what you need for you. And really honoring that, right? We want to kind of get away from this like exhaustion is good and just being slowing down and being present. So what can we do for our mind? Breathe. There's a reason why in labor they have you breathe, right? It helps regulate everything.
Yeah.
I would have been in trouble with that. So breathing, taking a moment to breathe. You know, there's the thing, it's like where you breathe in 4 counts and you exhale for double. That's a really good one. What else can we do for our mind?
Like counseling.
Yeah, 100%. And that can go into support too. What else?
Reading.
Yeah, reading. And these are just to kind of get you guys started, right?
And then maybe even find a positive affirmation, like someone will say, I am safe, I can handle hard things. I can say it over and over and over until I feel like I can think to breathe.
Yeah.
Or think to read or think
Yeah,
to
definitely. And that can kind of tie into spirit too, right? When we're talking to our like true self saying, hey, you are enough.
And now they're finding that doing puzzles is really good for your mind.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I recommend. And I actually just donated a bunch of my puzzles to some of our clients because think about it, when you're doing a puzzle, what are you focusing on? Yeah, you're focusing on pieces. You don't have time to chat, you know, so those are really great. For kids, just as a side note, you know, the Where's Waldo and Seek and Find. Actually, that was a strategy. My son has a lot of anxiety. And so I always kept a big book, you know, in my car, and we would do that. So, you know, that kind of helps for those things too. So you can use all of these for your kids, which is also important. Okay, so what else do we have for spirit?
I would just like to say, I have a sign that says, it is what it is, but it will become what you make it.
I love that.
And I have to tell myself that every day.
Yeah, so for people who know me, I love Post-it notes. I use them for everything. I talk about them probably every group that I have because we want to do this, right? So if we have a phrase that we need to hear, kind of like what Jenny was saying, what Phyllis was saying, we write it down, stick it somewhere, so we're seeing this message always in our presence, right? And help bring us back to that focus. I have a lot of those tonight. I always buy them on clearance. They're great for everything. Okay, so we have some more for support. We have counseling. What else could be supportive that we could use to help? Yeah,
Well, under spirit, I would add prayer, church.
yeah, maybe even meditation. A lot of people in my groups always talk about getting connected with nature for spirit. Going on those hikes, right? I don't know if you've ever hugged a tree, but I highly recommend it, right? There's something really powerful, especially those great redwoods, right?
Yeah.
There's something about getting grounded. One of the things I do is I'll garden, right? There's something about getting in the dirt. I have a ton of houseplants now. Anytime I'm stressed, I'm like out digging, right? So anything that can help you get grounded, whatever that is. Okay, and feel free to jump into more. So what's some more things we could do for support?
If there's someone that we know will listen and not judge, call a friend, a family member.
Yeah, and that's healthy relationships too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, having that, like your own personal crisis plan, I think we all need them.
I love that.
No matter where we're at.
Uh-huh.
Like, your crisis plan, like, who is that person? Who are you
Yeah.
gonna call? What are you gonna do? So you're feeling overwhelmed, what is it like?
Right, and having these healthy relationships of knowing who to call, who will be open to hearing you, right? So sometimes what we do is we'll call the first person, the last person we talk to, right? But they're maybe not a really good listener and they're judge you for what you're saying or actually make it worse. So we want to know who is healthy in our life, right? Having those awarenesses and then knowing who to go to. This, right? This is support and healthy relationships. So coming to these workshops throughout the city, luckily Santa Cruz has a lot of them. They're getting more and more frequent. The college has a lot of people there too. Santa has a lot. So paying attention to what you need and going and showing up. This is my second one since COVID that's been in a group. Like, so this is kind of nice that people are like, oh yeah, there's other people here. There's more of a community and building these healthy relationships and connections. Anybody want to add anything before we're going to getting organized? Yeah.
Yeah, under healthy relationships, it's important to find safe people
Yes.
and staying away from the toxic one.
Exactly. So in my healthy relationship group I do at the DV Center, it's really focusing on those pieces. So we kind of have this exercise where we'll have like a ring, we're in the center of the ring, and then who gets to be in that next ring of ours, right? And then who gets to be in the farthest ring? Who do we keep way over here? And really examining those relationships. Because when we're down, right, we don't want to go to those people who are in our outer ring. Yeah.
You can add pets to that. Right?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I say my dog is emotional support dog for my son, but he's really my emotional support dog. Like, I'm not like, yeah.
That has been one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do is like let go of unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
Because there's so much grief with it.
Mhm.
But what's interesting, and I know you're talking about this, is as I've done that and then, worked through a lot of things, I have found I am so much more present for my kids. It's like I can't be there when I'm, in those unhealthy spaces mentally and also in those relationships. So being able to work through what I needed to and get there, I am so much more present for them.
100%. And that's actually why this is sort of like our makeshift self-care plan. It's because when we do all these things, we can be more present. One of the things, and you bring up such a good point about these unhealthy relationships and the lack of support, is when you're in these unhealthy relationships, it takes up time. And time is a boundary that we forget we have. Our time is so precious and we want to make sure that we are sharing it with the people who deserve it. Because what happens is we're in unhealthy relationships. Not only is it taking our time in present time awareness, it's taking our time when we leave them, because normally we're chattering about it. Has anybody had an argument with somebody in their head for like an hour then they weren't there? Right, we don't want to be doing that.
That is one of my sticky notes is here I am noticing this thought kind of in that, but the power of now.
Yeah, I love that.
It's just that, and so that's my, when I get in those, it's like, here I am noticing about that. Here I am. Noticing
Yeah,
that. So, and then combined with that self-compassion book on just sometimes it's not going away. You're just like, okay,
yeah,
this deserves some compassion, this thought and this experience needs that before it's gonna float away.
right. And I love how you're saying that too, because there's something that's about like kind of leaning into that discomfort or leaning into whatever the problem is instead of doing those unhealthy coping strategies where we're avoiding it, or kind of what actually was about like the denial hope piece. Like, I hope it's just going to go away and ignore it, and then it keeps going and getting worse. And so really kind of going into these things, right? And that's gonna help us manage those spaces. When we do all of this, we're just better humans, right? Not even just better parents, but we're gonna be more present for anything in our life. And what's nice too is when something does come up, whether like this morning, my shower broke.
Oh, no.
Like, great, I have to go talk to people I can't even shower, right? But because I have all this in place, I'm kind of able to do like, you know, that healthy perspective change. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't really matter, right? I'll live. But you know, we're gonna have some resiliency in place, right? And we can kind of laugh about it instead of like, you know, obsessing on it about like, oh, everything could go wrong, right? So we're like, okay, this of course happens. But that's because I practice all of this stuff, right? I can have that self-compassion, like, okay, it's not so bad. Why do we think staying organized is on this list?
I think that's like key because we have our priorities, whether that's, you know, to get our kids ready for school. But if we're focused on like the toxic relationship or like, you know, a date for court, we can't do that. Like, what is B, like, what is the most important? Okay, this is gonna happen next week, but it's taking away my time from the kid today.
Right.
Like, write it out, get paid for your, like there, put it in our phones.
Yeah.
Just try to plan out, okay, maybe you're worried about when you have to prepare documents or declaration. You write it down, okay, kids are going to bed at Wednesday, 5, 6 o'clock, I'm gonna start working on that. And you can kind of clear your space, the mental space, to stay organized with your life.
Yeah, so, you know, getting organized to create more mental space. Has anybody like forgot their to-do list and they're like running through their head of like everything they need to do at the store, right? It takes a lot of thought, right? But if you imagine if we're getting organized and we have some structure in place, everybody feels more comfortable. Also, when we're organized, we can make time to do this daily, which is what we really want to be doing. If we are stressed out and life happens, right? So say maybe my shower breaks, maybe my car will break down later, right? Like I don't think build up, right? But if I'm doing all of these things, I can have the space to do that perspective change. And if I'm organized, I know where in my calendar my next window of free time is. And I don't have to stress out too much. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can kind of use this free time to like regroup that's coming up. I'm not panicking about when I'm going to catch my breath and when I'm going to get air, you know, and then everything that I need to do for my kids. Right? Yeah.
Also, staying organized, save time and money, you can find everything, you don't have to buy more.
100%. My son always jokes that I have OCD because I want everything like labeled and in a box. But it's really because when I was working at a special needs preschool, like that's what we did. And it was so efficient, right? I knew where everything was. Everything has a home. I always say, like, don't put things down, put it away. It's like a common thing I say in my house, probably like throughout the day. But when we're doing this, not only we're modeling all of these things, but we're also creating a team structure where our kids are doing this too. And when we have an organization, they're gonna feel safer, we're gonna feel safer, and we're gonna have more time for prevention talks. I'm trying to explain what time we have. You're good. We're good. I think we have like, what, 10 minutes? 10 minutes? Something like that.
That's more than that.
Okay. We'll do like 5 minutes of organization and then it's a prevention talk. So let's talk about some things that we need to get organized. So Jenny was actually saying, what were some of the key points you're saying? Scheduling, right?
Scheduling,
Finance,
finance.
yeah, that's a big one. Someone mentioned pets earlier, walking our pets if they're dogs, right? Taking them to the vet, all of those things. Kids' schedules, depending on how many kids you have more responsibilities to get them to different schools. I know, I think Wednesday, when my son was in high school, he just graduated, like Wednesday, they had a half day. I'm like, I don't get a half day off, like half day, right? And so we're having to do, you know, our school schedules, right? For our kids, our work schedules, our friendship schedules. So I actually use this at home. This is my favorite self-care. I literally have a drawer full of them. I definitely practice what I teach. Whenever I'm getting overwhelmed, I go back to the drawing board. I have erasable pens and I will start to cut everything out. I'll put my son's stuff in one color, my stuff another, and I always highlight self-care so I know when I have a window. There's a bunch here, so take them. It's just a free one online. Feel free to grab whatever you want, but just to get started, because then we can plan where all these things go in our day. Right, so maybe finances came up and we have to do more of that one day. You know when we can kind of swap things out just by a glance. Right, and so we want to pay attention to those things. So thinking about what's on your plate, what else is on your plate that you have to do? Anybody have special needs kids? Right? Right. So a lot of times we have extra therapies that we have to schedule in. And if it's ABA, they're gonna be in our home sometimes 5 times a week, right? Normally when there's ABA, there's normally some sort of speech and social skills in place too, right? So there's a lot of moving pieces. And we wanna make sure that we have them structured, so we do have time to keep these things our focus. If we are not taking care of ourselves, we can't pour from a dry cup, like we just don't have the energy anymore. And so when we're lacking on this, that's when we tend to have the most parenting problems, because we're gonna short circuit, right? And so when we're short circuiting because we're not doing these things, we don't tend to have that accountability. We tend to just feel bad about the choices we made, and then we're operating in a failure cycle, right? So we're, yeah.
I totally hear you, but I get caught up in this like guilt of like, if I just have a hard time prioritizing it because I feel like I need to be not to hear you, but it's hard.
It is super hard, and I actually struggled with it too. Like I think I had a year battle with myself about trying to kind of get back what I know after a divorce. I'm like, okay, I need to do me, and I fought this. Like, I don't have time for this, you know, but it wasn't until I made time for that I had ease and peace again. You know, and that's that fight. And it's also, we're trained to work longer, be so, you know, go, take care of everybody but ourselves. So it doesn't work though, right? So at some point we have to be like, you're enough, you deserve that time for yourself, you deserve to reboot, you deserve to have rest. If we don't have rest, we don't have ease, we're not prioritizing our peace, it's really hard to obtain our values and have boundaries, because we forget what it feels like. So when someone's disrespecting us, kids included, right?
3-year codependency anonymous really helped.
Yeah, yeah, the workshop we teach in the codependency healthy relationship work, where we develop unhealthy coping strategies, and that's gonna make things worse in the long run. And so really staying in this preventative mode really helps out a lot. So we're not doing the unhealthy coping strategies or being codependent. They talked about enabling, right, earlier in that denial piece. When we're not doing this and we see these things, we're gonna do whatever puts out the fire first. And that's where we get into those unhealthy strategies, right? Because maybe it works once, but that becomes a habit. Now we're enabling bad behavior, or we're ignoring bad behavior because it's too much to deal with, and then we're kind of stuck in that failure. When we're in a failure cycle, it influences the next person, right, that we interact with. And then they start to get in the failure cycle. And it's really hard to get out of that if we don't take the time to kind of reboot. Which brings up, we're not perfect, right? I'm not a perfect parent. No one's a perfect parent. I can teach this stuff, we can teach it all day long, but we have to then know how to recover. So if we do sort of mess up or make a mistake, we want to have that accountability. That's also modeling good skills for our kids. My bad, right? I think it was like a few months ago, I was like running on empty, and I don't know what my son was like, Mom, I think we're having a power struggle. And I was like at the red light trying to turn left to get everywhere. But you know what? I think you're right. You know, like, okay, let's regroup, right? But when you can have that communication and dialogue, because you're doing this and this is like a family value, then you guys can kind of help each other, and you're really coming from that team space, right, of respect, and which is what we want, because if we don't have the respect in place and we're not teaching them that these are important, what happens is our self-esteem gets hit, right? And then when our self-esteem's hit, their self-esteem gets hit, then they don't have the courage to resist the peer pressure or the courage to speak up. Hey, I did this and I think I'm in trouble, right? And not only with drugs, but we have sexual issues going on too, right? I used to do sex education. And one of the things we did is we were in a 6th grade class and someone got HIV, but they didn't go to their family. They called CSUN, where I was doing my work, and we came in though. So we want to keep this as a priority, because then our kids will keep this a priority. And that's going to keep that self-esteem in place and that courage in place, so they can have us to talk to. This is what they're saying, schools can't do it all. We have to be involved. And when we don't know how to do something, we want to reach out and ask for help, right? There's a lot of help. Yeah. Oh, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Okay. Any questions?
Can I take a photo of that before you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna share it on.
Yeah, that's my 5-minute line. Okay. Okay. So I have 5 minutes. So we're gonna just kind of touch base on problem prevention talks. We'll just write them down really quick. I'll have it later. Identify the problem or risk. Here's some tips for your family meetings, right? Our crash course. Sharing thoughts and feelings. With this sharing thoughts and feelings, we always want to make sure we're being respectful. A lot of times parents don't realize what they sound like, so, you know, stand in front of the mirror, see what your facial looks like when you're mad, see if you can kind of balance that out to a neutral space. Generate guidelines and brainstorming solutions. And there's gonna be a follow-up later. So these are the basic outlines of what we want to be covering in a prevention talk or just even a family meeting, right? When it's a problem. We can do this for fun as well, but since we're limited time, we're gonna just stick to the problem. So whatever the risk is, that's when we're gonna be talking about this. If we don't know enough information, the internet has tons of resources. I love the CDC websites. I actually brought some of my favorite handouts. They have a QR code now where you can scan it and it will pop up, which is cool. So I did bring some risk situations about coping, sharing thoughts and feelings. If it's drugs and alcohol, we can say, hey, we're really worried. We know that fentanyl is pretty much in anything and we're scared for your safety, right? If you come from the space of empathy and concern versus, you know, yelling, we're going to get more of a buy-in for them to talk to us, which is what we want. Guidelines, these are our family values, right? So teamwork is one of mine. Staying healthy and safe, which means not doing the drugs. So we can kind of talk about this too then, and then brainstorm solutions. So what do you need? Do you need to go to rehab? Do you need, you know, counseling? What do you need to help support this situation? And then we're going to always follow up. This is so key because if we just do this once and we never check in, there's no consequences in place, right? We want to make sure we have that follow up because then we can either do a logical consequence or as a parent, we can take more of a hands-on approach and make sure that they get the help that they need.
Just to add on to that. So, another follow-up question that's really good for your kid or whoever you're talking to is how can I help you reach that goal or change that behavior or whatever it is.
That's what's so good about these talks is because we're doing it as a team. It's not a lecture. If you lecture, they're not listening. Right. And if I even call them, like if I said, hey, to my son, we're gonna have a family meeting, I would get brought at and the eyes rolled, right? And I can be like, dude, I need a check-in though. And that's like a buy-in. Normally I make check-ins fun. Normally we're getting a drink, we're doing something fun with our check-ins, and then that's gonna make the problem solving way better. One of the things with the follow-ups, and we don't have time to get into it a lot, is make sure that you're catching them being good and doing something fun with them every day. Get into these habits. So there's something called daily dose of internet. And it's me and my son's like habit whenever there's a new episode. It's just like funny things that happen on the internet collection. It's like 5-10 minutes. We sit and watch them every single time he waits for me. Right. So you want to get into these habits of having this follow-up time also be fun. Because then they're going to want to tell you about these things. And that's when you get into those active listening skills, which we don't have time for. But anyway, this is sort of like that basic setup for the family. I think we're out of time, but is there any questions or comments? Things you want to add on to our makeshift self-care plan?
I really want to hear about the active listening skills.
I could definitely say, I think they were like, we're going to have the music turned on and get like walk off the stage. So yeah, I could definitely do that. No. So can we get into active listening? That's fine. I can always do it after too.
Okay. Anyway, that concludes our presentations for today. I know it's a lot to take in, but they're all important things for parenting. You know, then I will be sending out some of the things that you haven't received yet. But anyway, I want to let you know that our next workshop will be February the 18th. It will be here in person and on Zoom. Will be basics of filing taxes, whether you file your own or not. And that will be presented. I think she's left, but Tressa was with us earlier. She will do the presentation. She is an adjunct accounting professor, among other things. And family law issues, divorce, child custody, and support. And that will be presented by James Reap. He has received the super lawyer's distinctions from 2015 through 2022 and listed in U.S. News Best Lawyers in America 2021 and 2023. So that will be our next workshop. Now, what we need you to do before we move on, because we need to do evaluations. So we'll we'll be passing out the evaluation forms for you. When we complete those, then we will have a drawing for $25. And I just like to say that in May, we will be having awards. And that is for people who have attended 5 out of the 6 workshops. And you'll be named a Life Forward ambassador. We have one present with us now, and that's Kathy Gaina. If you want to know her, sometimes we ask you to help us when we need help doing things. So I mean, there's a little bit more to it than just getting the title. So does everybody have a copy of the evaluation form now?